Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome to another episode of Workshop Wednesday, and this week I'm going to be making a box. Now wait, before you all rush off to stamp on the dislike button, it's not just any old box. It's a Soviet 152mm ammunition crate box. I got this pack from Mini Art, who I believe are a Ukrainian company, and they generally tend to do things that go with models rather than the models themselves. Things like crew, jerry cans, fuel drums, signposts, that sort of thing. Today we're making the ammunition crates to go with the KV2 that we did last week. I thought that this was going to be a relatively quick and easy experience. I mean, the box comes with 40mm, 57mm, 76mm, 85mm, 100mm, 122mm and 152mm ammunition and ammunition crate. So I'm not using the whole contents of the box. At the most I'll be using 2 sprues to make 2 crates. Obviously I'm going to want to have at least one of the crates open so you can see the contents, both the propellant charge and the warhead, I suppose, for want of a better word. But it's a box. I mean, how long is it going to take? Turns out about 4 hours. I thought I'll just sit down, quick half-hour modelling. No. So this is what we've ended up with. It turns out that the Soviets built ammunition crates that were mostly the same size, and then they just arranged the internals with various different compartments and spacers to fit the type of ammunition that was going into the crate. So this spacer here is what keeps the shell wedged through the hole that's been cut into one end of the compartment. Now I'm obviously going to have to remove that to get the shell out so I can paint it and also paint the inside of the crate. But aside from the bits that I've glued together here, which as much as I can glue together and still be able to paint everything and fit the remainder in, there are still another 6 pieces that go towards making up the crate and its contents. Which is kind of funny if you think about it, because normally a box consists of exactly 6 pieces, and yet I've all but finished assembling this particular crate and I've still got 6 pieces left to go. Still, it could have been a lot worse. I could have been putting 150 pieces of track link together, one piece at a time, twice. So, let's crack on. I painted the box itself in Citadel Zandri Dust, but any wood shade would have done. I imagine that these crates, I mean I don't know for sure, but I imagine that these ammunition crates were made from the cheapest wood that was available. That would get the job done. There's a painting guide on the back of the box that you can just see up there in the top left corner of the screen. You can paint the boxes in natural wood colour or in olive green. I mean, you can paint them in whatever colour you want, but those are the 2 colours that would have been used for ammunition at the time. With the crate itself base coated and waiting to dry, it's time to do the ammunition. Now, again, according to the painting instructions, the ammunition was painted olive drab, but there were 3 rings around the shell. 2 of those are in silver or steel, and one's in red. And there's some extremely fine detail on this thing. There's also a decal apparently that's supposed to go over the ammunition here, but, well, black on a very dark olive drab background, it's barely going to be visible. I did intend to put the decals on, but I had an utter nightmare with those things, and, well, I decided to not bother with the one that was going to go on the shell. I was very pleased with myself, by the way, for coming up with a solution as to the problem of how to actually hold the shell so I can paint it without actually touching the shell, so I can paint it. And, well, the solution was fairly simple, as you probably figured out. I just took a sewing needle, stuck it in the bottom of the shell, and held onto the sewing needle. And it did a really good job. While we're here, let me just show you some of the other stuff that I'm planning to do in the future. I found a website called El Greco Miniatures, and they basically sell a load of miniatures made by other companies, like this one from Creepy Tables. La Chara here, for example, some kind of Mexican saint of the dead, and I'm really looking forward to painting her. Blue skin, perhaps, contrasting with the green snake. Getting the detail on those individual scales on the snake is going to be fun. But this one, from Nuts Planet, also sold by El Greco Miniatures, I'm actually quite scared to start this because I really don't want to fuck it up. This is Venatrix the Half-Elf. by Nuts Planet. If I can paint this half as well as she's been painted on the box, I'm going to be extremely happy. But I'm going to need to get much, much better at skin tones before I even think about starting that. I really don't want to waste it. But anyway, that's what we've got planned for future videos. I'll put a link in the description to El Greco Miniatures, although you can probably find it for yourself, but I'll put the link there anyway, just in case anybody is interested. Anyway, back to the ammo crate. Or more specifically, the propellant casing for the 152mm high explosive shell. So I'm base coating this in Citadel Wraithbone, which is basically just an extremely pale cream colour. It's almost white. My problem here is that I don't actually have any brass paint. I mean, I've got some metallic paints. I've got gold, a couple of different shades of gold. I've got a couple of shades of metal or steel, but I don't have anything in brass or copper. So, I mean, gold should do, right? If I put a wash over it to darken it a little, so it's not quite as bright and shiny. That's what we're going to try anyway. While I'm waiting for the base coat on the propellant casing to dry, it's back to the box itself, and it's time to try to bring out some of the texture of the wood. And that means applying a wash to the crate. Now, I'm using sepia, which is a very, very pale brown, and I think I probably should have used something a little darker. Agrax Earthshade, for example, from Citadel. You see, the problem with using the sepia, I mean, it's getting the job done. It's putting contrast around the edges and filling in the textures and bringing the textures out. But it's very subtle, possibly a little too subtle. But we'll see how it goes. If I don't think it's given enough contrast, putting a wash on is going to leave it very, very shiny even after the wash is dried, and I'm going to have to fix that. And I can fix that by just dry brushing it back in the original colour, which will only touch the raised surfaces and leave the darker sepia in the recesses. But we'll see how it looks after it's dried. Meanwhile, back to that propellant casing. Gold paint, because I don't have any brass paint, and you know, it's looking all right. I mean, I'm going to need to darken the interior there. But just a little bit. I mean, I don't actually need to, because it's when it's in the ammo crate, you're not going to see the interior of the shell, but I'm going to be doing it anyway. I'll just drop a bit of Nuln Oil in there, a black shade. And probably wash the whole thing in a black shade as well, because there isn't that much detail on the casing, other than the line around the rim at the bottom. But the black wash will help to, well, not make it quite so shiny. With that done, it's time to head back to the ammo crate and apply the finishing touches. And we're talking about the metal fastenings and fittings, which I'm painting in a base coat of lead belcher and then just bringing out the edges and darkening down the overall shine with a spot of Nuln Oil wash. With that done, it's time to add the decals both to the shells and to the crate that they come in, which I almost completely screwed up because I am terrible at manipulating decals, and luckily I forgot to film, so you don't get to see how embarrassingly bad I am at it. But the end result, I think, was entirely acceptable. Certainly no better than that. Although, well, it kind of depends on the lighting conditions when you photograph, because they look kind of shiny and not really pine-coloured here. But in other photographs, in other light conditions, and when you're looking at them with the naked eye, they look more like this, which is still a little shiny in places, but nothing that can't be fixed with an extremely light dry brush or perhaps a few more coats of matte varnish. Bit of a spoiler alert here for what will be coming up in the next video when I put the crew together. This is the crewman I had most fun with because there's more variation in what he's wearing. The majority of the rest of the crew are wearing black coveralls, and painting detail on something that's just black is an almighty pain in the arse. And I'm not entirely sure that I was completely successful in doing it, but, well, you get to be the judge of that in the next Workshop Wednesday video. The trials and tribulations of assembling the 5-man crew of a KV2, who, quite frankly, could all use a bit of fashion advice. But all of that will be covered up in a future episode. For now, I'm going to knock this video on the head and get back to enjoying what remains of my birthday. Thank you to everybody for their very generous birthday wishes. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.